Hello YouTube and welcome back one and all to another Raging Reality reaction video where tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I have got a very interesting candidate for today here, ladies and gentlemen. And the only reason, I'll get to exactly why I'm doing this group in particular in a few moments, because if you've caught on by some other types of groups like Rotting Christ in the past, groups like Suicide Silence, Cannibal Corpse, I think it was Necromantia, Cannibal Corpse, a lot of black metal stuff, Behemoth, Power... No, I don't really think a Powerwolf I could call black, Unmisery. But anyway, there's quite a lot that I might have done that I might not have covered. Meshuggah, maybe, possibly, I don't know. They're a little bit more hardcore. Well, maybe a little bit more than just black. Anyway, the point to all of this is that I have a very mixed sort of relationship with black metal. And I think that the only reason why is because it's just down to, I think, taste and preferences. Some people enjoy the really hardcore stuff. Some people just straight up get a kick out of listening to stuff that is absolutely it's almost worshipped like a cult. Unfortunately, from my own experiences, there's only been a handful of songs from the black metal subgenre that it's not that I haven't found myself getting into. It's just some of them I found not so much not that interesting, but rather I found to almost be so incoherent to experience or get into. And one thing I have to try and make clear without coming across as too douchey is that it's all well and good for rock metal groups, anyone for that matter, to make songs of blasphemous nature or anything like that. It's not for me to say what people can and cannot do. That's not the issue. The problem is that you have to bear in mind is that you're still technically making music. So the principles sort of still have to apply. You've got to create, I don't know, a tune or a melody, a beat. You've got to create something that's going to necessarily draw people towards it. Think of okay, I'll tell you what, let me do it to you like this. Think of a really popular song that you guys like, and let's call that song, let's say it's a magnet, and if it's something you like, you're going to be drawn towards it, and maybe the people corresponding to said magnet are you going to be drawn to. For example, you guys may already know is that I'm becoming a really big fan of groups like Stratovarius, Nightwish, Black Sabbath, Sleep, a lot of groove, a lot of doom sort of stuff, because of it's a lot sort of like deeper in tone. It's a lot slower. It builds up a sense of atmosphere, if you will, and that's the sort of thing I like. I really like the really long stuff that pulls me into an experience, something I can enjoy pretty much on my own. It's what I can get out of it, you might want to say. When it comes to black metal, there's quite a lot I assume I could get out of it, but it's such a hard thing to sort of relax and get into my mind and try and work out what's going on. That sort of thing is a little bit harder for me to get my head around, and it's really nobody's fault. That's just not the really sort of thing I would have chosen to listen to. But you know what? I'm going to be fair, I'm going to be impartial, and at least, I'll give it a go, because you know what? Maybe it's just there's a certain type of group that, I don't know, may be able to do it better, which brings us to the subject of Rotting Christ. And the first thing that drew me immediately to these guys is the name itself. I mean, think about it, ladies and gentlemen. Rotting Christ. That is a very striking name for a group. First off, the imagery of Christ's body rotting. That is... Who would ever have thought to have come up with an idea? That's a bit like calling a group God's Orgy. The idea that God is in heaven, literally having sex with thousands and thousands and thousands of women. and there's no limit to what these can be like. And maybe that's the sort of thing that drew me towards Rotten Christ, is that maybe they can come up with stuff that no sane or logical person or any, sensitive mind could have possibly have come up with. Maybe they're going to draw me into something that I never would have considered to be sane or logical or anything like that. And there's plenty of places like that in the world where that sort of environment can grow. That is, if it's like that. And the reason why is, ladies and gentlemen, is that I decided that I didn't really want to try out some of their newer stuff. I wanted to go back to their second album, Non Serviam, which I know that I think you were resorting back to Latin in the extreme cases is something that Rotting Christ kind of likes. It's something you don't really hear that much anyway. Well, certainly I haven't. People resorting to Latin in some of the songs that I've covered. Also, it's not like these were just like a new group on the block with a very, very striking title. These guys have been around since like 1986 or something like that, which, I don't know, small world, but it's as much as you can get out. Also, I found out that in their modern stuff, they're labeled as black and gothic metal. On Non Serviam, they were described as extreme black metal, which is a bit interesting. Were they a little bit more hardcore back in the day, and they maybe softened up in later years? That I couldn't tell. But the only other thing I do know about this group is that they come from Greece. Just not bad. Maybe they were Coptic or Orthodox Christians. I don't really know. I haven't really went into detail about that. Although I must point out that I actually do have relatives from Greece, and some of them even some of the culture has rubbed off on some of my cousins. My uncle, for example, Stavros, is Greek himself, and he's almost lived in Greece his entire life. That is to say, the last time I saw him was like about 17 and a half years ago. It's gonna be really weird, but I always remembered him. He had like a very, very thick moustache, almost like the entire top of his lip was kind of like that. It was just all hair and a very like high jeans as well. But that's a different matter. Now, with all that being said and done, and there was a lot to get into in that first part, I apologize. But let's check out Rotting Christ for themselves. That name is just so of itself, you might say. Anyway, if you guys want to check out the original video for yourselves, links will all be in the description down below. Let's begin. The Fifth Illusion in 3, 2, 1, and... Okay there, ladies and gentlemen, that was the Fifth Illusion by Rotting Christ. Now, yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna say it again. It's like what I was saying earlier. There's it. I just need to like pull something up at the moment. Because there were some very, very, very interesting things I kind of like wanted to mention as a result of all this. The first one is that the musicianship, and I'm just going to pull some of these guys up in a second right here. Some of the guys here like Themis Tolus, Sarkias Tolus, two brothers. Not bad. The musicians, well, actually, Jesus, they've had a lot of like recurring bad guys over the years. Hang on, Costas. No, okay, that's. I think that's meant to be someone who played for like Beast in Black or somewhere like that, or the Black Beast. That might be a different thing altogether. But anyway, like I was saying, the musicianship is nothing short of excellent. The problem is that. What's this? Sakias Tollis, or the vocalist and the guitarist. The problem is that his singing is. How best can I put it? You know that scene in Monty Python's Life of Brian where just before like Brian has started to talk amongst the peasants, and then beside him there's this guy who's like dripping in blood and he's screaming hysterics about the whores of Babylon. That's kind of like what Tollis's singing reminds me of. It reminds me of like somebody standing on a pedestal screaming at absolutely nothing about the evils of let's say of red hot fiery pokers being shoved up all your ass for all eternity. And that, now listen, I think, in fact, actually, that's maybe a good way to go with, like, maybe for me describing Rotting Christ, is that they're sort of like placed on high to the point where you're sort of just leaning back, looking up, and you're paying attention to all this. Whether you realize, you know when you're like, if you're like in a city and that, and there's like street performers going on, and you just sort of like sit back, and before you realize what's happening, you're watching like somebody swallowing a sword or leaping through fire, or goodness knows what kind of performance it is, or if anything is going on whatsoever. You're just watching people more or less doing something that is, at first glance, it looks ridiculous. It looks like somebody could easily get killed. But it's in reality, it's a lot more tame. And I think that maybe it's just because Tollis has years of experience, probably even before he started off Rotting Christ, that he had a lot going on for him. I mean, let's just go over the lyrics anyway, just to convey something about this. Like, let's try and bring this back down to earth just a little bit. Excavate the ancient tomb, expansion of my doom, coverage to the empty coffin. A kingdom under catacomb, furrowed background, self-abnegation, and a flute to paint the atmosphere. The fifth illusion, self-delusion of reality. The fifth illusion, prison warder for your dreams. A kingdom under catacomb, furrowed under background. Neutralize your fantasy, banishment, spiritual abusement, his excellence. So immediately on like first glance, you almost would be forgiven in thinking that the whole point to the fifth illusion is that there is some ancient force at work that is trying to because I believe the idea of a catacomb is that it's meant to be like some kind of like chamber underneath a kingdom or maybe a castle itself, and it's literally like, it's basically an underground cemetery. There's like isn't it something like skulls like make up the walls, and coffins just like make up the floor, or maybe sometimes like even the faces of coffins are just like on the ceiling. Let me just pull up like some pictures of catacombs right now. I'm not entirely sure if it's something I can technically show. Yeah, it's exactly what I thought about. The biggest ones are sort of like in Paris, I believe. the Catacombs de Paris. Seems like a bit of a... the Catacombs of Paris are underground ossuaires in Paris, France, which hold the remains of more than 6 million people in a small part of a tunnel network built to consolidate Paris' ancient stone quarries. Wasn't it also true that, like, maybe... Because about maybe, like, plagues of, like, the Black Death that not only probably struck Paris... Because I remember watching this documentary once where Paris... Some people think London was a filthy hovel. Paris was almost medieval. And remember, we're not talking like mid 20th century, we're talking mid 19th century. And Paris was almost one of the filthiest cities in the world from what I could see. I apologize to anybody who's from France for saying this. It's just true. And from what I could see anyway. And I think the idea of what Rod and Christ have done is that making this idea of an underground of frankly medieval and horrifying prospect to encase not just your dreams of your aspirations, but no doubt maybe the thoughts of millions of others. Maybe this is literally a place where dreams come to die. And the illusion is believing that places like these do not exist. If anything, maybe the catacomb itself is serving as some sort of a prolonged metaphor, or maybe an illusion in itself that all hope is gone, and that there is the only hope in this world is that when you die, you're at peace. Nothing could be further from the truth. There are millions of things worse once you die than just being dead. There's what happens maybe in 5 years. You could literally be forgotten about just like that. Maybe someone will invent some desertorial scandal about you to which you cannot answer. And automatically you could have like your names removed from the registers and you will become an unperson. You would have ceased to exist. You might have never have existed. Imagine what that's like, ladies and gentlemen. Everything you've ever worked for, everything you've ever done, you could literally be rubbed out and forgotten. Maybe just like street performers. Maybe one day you'll see them, you just take them for granted, and then gone. Just like that. Prison warder of your dreams. Maybe somebody who maybe has to keep these things in check, because hey, you know, there's the thing about living with regret if you don't achieve your dreams. But what about if you do achieve your dreams? What would the world be like if you actually succeeded in what you're trying to do? Anyway, like I was saying before, the musicianship in RC was nothing short of excellent. There were times when the beginning it began with what I felt like the reverberation of some ancient and evil machine running without oil, and then it evolved into what I could only describe as a Blackie Lawless solo. That was... Ironically, I was getting used to it, and then they played something that was a little bit more, even more to get into. I don't think I've really ever counted that sort of thing in black metal before, but you know what? I didn't know I didn't know I wanted, but I'm sure as hell glad that they did it. Anyway, I've learned something quite interesting about it through all this, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe Rod and Christ, maybe they are the way to go. Maybe this is the sort of group I've been looking for because I want to like black metal. I want to have conversations about the things that go on in the minds of such people like Sakis Tolis. But I also want to be able to enjoy the song as a song as well. Maybe it's the lesser of two evils, but in this case, I loved both evils. And I could live with them fully. No problems, no quarter asks, no given there. Well, there we go. So anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this reaction video. Please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys thought of the Fifth Illusion by Rotting Christ. Please also make sure to also like and subscribe to get daily notifications when my videos come out. And I hope to live you guys again in the next reaction video. Take care. Bye-bye for now.